Welcome to another episode of Space Together with Justin Knapp and our special guests, where you can learn how space sharing can enable you to generate a non-traditional income stream while making an impact.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here today with Paul Lessard, and I think I could say this, the future Vice President of the Evangelical Covenant Church, who I also consider to be a great friend of mine. We spent a bunch of times sitting and having coffee and discussing all sorts of stuff. So I'm really excited to be here with you today, Paul. Thank you so much.
Oh, glad to be here with you, Justin. And I only wish we were in person at a coffee shop because that's always the best.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, I was just telling you before we got on the call that I'm in this super rad freelancer cafe somewhere in the middle of Athens, Texas. So I wish we were here enjoying a coffee that some robot made us or something. That'd make things a lot more fun.
That'd be funny. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Paul, we've actually had this agreement between you and Space Together for quite some time. And so to back up, before we dive into this interview, I can just say that Space Together is an online platform that helps anybody that has underutilized commercial space. So churches, gyms, dance studios, literally any sort of commercial building that has utility that's underutilized. We take that underutilization, we take the functionality, the availability, all the amenities that those buildings have, and then we market it to the community around them. So essentially, we help people create a non-traditional revenue stream by impacting their community. And so, Paul, you guys were actually the very first ones to sign an enterprise level contract with us, where we signed a deal with the entire denomination. And so, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for that. And we just wanted to unpack a little bit about what that partnership really means.
Yeah. So I serve the Evangelical Covenant currently as executive minister of Start and Strengthen Churches. And that's one of 5 mission priorities. It's the mission priority that oversees church planting and church health. So when you guys, when we first met you, I think 4 years ago now, what was of particular interest was there's this felt need, right, either for space or for income. And this is, of course, all before COVID and all that we've experienced there in terms of negative income impact. But obviously, you stood in the gap. And in as much as that we, on one side, are church plants that are looking for space, and on the other side, established churches who have to consider additional income streams, you were perfectly poised for us. And to go to the platform and to see it, and you go, oh my goodness, this answers a question that we haven't even known how to ask, actually. Was a great gift and continues to be a gift.
Absolutely. And you guys actually were just given Mark DeMoss. I'll do a shameless plug for him and his book, The Coming Revolution in Church Economics. It's a fantastic book if you guys haven't read that. And Mark has become a really well-known hero, both in just the multi-ethnic and diverse church movement. And he actually paid the ECC, excuse me, just one of the highest compliments the other day. And he told me that I could not have partnered with a better denomination than the ECC, because you guys have been just constantly pushing to see social justice and make sure that that your denomination really stood forward and was progressive in the things that you do. And so I'm very, very thankful for that partnership as well. So let's dive in. I got a couple questions for you. We're going to keep this interview kind of rolling. But the first thing is, and I don't know if you want to use the title with Start and Strengthen Churches, or if you even know what your new real JD is going to be. But tell us who you are and your title with the ECC.
So I serve as executive minister of Start and Strengthen Churches.
Okay.
Which is the mission priority that oversees church planting and church health.
Okay, right on. Got it. Awesome. What would you say the mission you and your team are focused on?
We're the mission of the church in its most purest form, which is to make and to draw people to Jesus and to help them find a home in the community, the Christian community of the church. That's the center of what we do. And so we do that either by planting churches, right? So you have baby communities of faith, so to speak, which is about your future, or it's tending to the established congregation, established church, and helping those communities of faith, actually reminding them of their mission, help them find their missional focus and vitality and renewal as a result of that.
Wow. The ECC signed a 6-year national contract with us. What about our product? Whenever you heard about what we were doing. As you said, you kind of saw us kind of standing in the gap. What about our product made you say, man, we really need this?
Well, you guys have the expertise, and our local churches have the need, right? Either for space or for additional streams of income. And so Space Together is a practical means of helping the local church flourish, and potentially then an answer to prayer for some of our churches, particularly who are struggling. And I think I would add this one piece. It was interesting, and I appreciated the shout out in terms of us living in that biblical justice space, missions, ministries of compassion, mercy, and justice. What we've seen, because about a third of our churches are multi-ethnic or ethnic churches, and oftentimes those churches come to us with an appreciation of multiple streams, particularly our African American churches, when they understand how they can leverage community resources, block grants, sometimes government funding, as a way to keep the pure mission of the church going. And they've got all these other things they start, all these other 501c3s. As you guys know, in the white church, particularly the suburban white church or the rural white church, we're used to doing it on our own. In fact, we pride ourselves on doing it on our own, right?
Yeah.
And even to the extent then that we take pride and joy as well in making sure no one pays for any of the space that they use from us. And so, interesting, culturally, there's a lot to surmount then if there's declining income, as we're seeing, particularly post-COVID. Our churches are down a certain percentage and their giving is often down a certain percentage. And that may or may not get them close to the level of sustainability. So with you guys, and of course, our conversation started just like a month before COVID. It's amazing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, what timing.
Yeah, but that ability, right, to actually, in many cases, churches that are healthy but smaller, you allow their ministry footprint to continue. If we can bring in the stream of income.
Absolutely. We had a mentor of ours, and our church was absolutely busting at the seams at one point. Everybody's sitting on the floor. We don't even have enough chairs for people, and we were in a strip mall, and the entire strip mall was getting, all the other people were super mad at us because every time we had services, we took up all of the parking, and we had all of these things going on, and it was absolutely tremendous, but we still didn't have that much money coming in. And the demographic that we were serving were 100% very diverse, and it was a lot younger people. It was a lot of people that had never really gone to church, or people that had kind of forgotten about church. And one of our mentors, he saw all the growth and he saw everything that we were doing, and he kind of wanted us to start making some gradual steps sort of out of our culture of this place where we could be, accepting to everybody and be very diverse, and have kind of systems put in place that actually kept it that way, kind of kept our culture intact, where it was a really safe place for people from all walks of life. And we went to him and we said, hey, we're not going to make those steps. We're going to keep things this way. And his response was, I love your heart. I love what you're doing, but you are going to have to find a way to pay to have that level of influence. Yeah. And I've said that to a lot of the people, is that, there's this big heart that we have a lot of times to go and serve these underprivileged or underserved communities and demographics and every other thing under the sun. And, you get into it and it's like, yeah, we have all of the heart, but we don't have the cash, and raising the cash can be really difficult. Right. And so we really, when we started Space Together, this was mainly the focus. Like, can we give pastors the ability to continue their mission through non-traditional revenue streams by continuing their mission? So absolutely, just kind of in line there. 100% agree.
No, and it prepares the church for the future. This is what's interesting, that everything out there, when it talks about giving, talks about declining giving in general, because there's less disposable income, and the giving patterns of millennials and those below them is different than that of the boomers and the builders, right? And so if we're really concerned about the future of our congregation, we have to think about additional streams of income. It's another way of putting it is that the Lord is ready to bless our congregation financially and through non-traditional ways, right? And that's what we have to think. It's not just a simple business kind of thing. It's that the Lord has provided the resources, but they land in different places than we maybe have thought in the past.
Absolutely. 100%. And I think too, just, me and you've had this conversation so many times, right? The culture of our little church was so impacted by this, just The fact that whenever we weren't having a service, or it wasn't a night that there was a Bible study or band practice, everybody in our church would drive by our building and it was still full of life.
Yeah.
It was still full of impact. Whenever we weren't there, there were churches and businesses and nonprofits using our facility to start or sustain their organization the entire time. And we were making money while that was happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It changed the entire culture of what we were doing. And, rather than cost us money, we were actually making money to have that type of impact.
Yeah, no, that's so powerful. And it shapes who you become. And a few weeks back, I was back at a church that I'd served. It was 10-year anniversary. We had the building that we had bought had been a Sears outlet store, and we had rehabbed that, right, and made it into a sanctuary, into a church for us. And when we did that, we had partnered with a special needs group, and so we designed in a way that the special needs group could be in there, and they're still in there. And all along, our conversation was they use it during the week, and we use it on the weekends, and maybe some in the evenings. But they're the perfect partner, and we want to partner with them. And so there's income. But it wasn't just in means to the end. It was the idea that there's something about our stories being joined that causes them to become something more in mind with God has in mind, and the same for us. And one of the practical things when they asked me a few weeks ago when I went back to that church and they interviewed me on a Sunday morning, they said, "What difference do you think that made?" And I said, one of the biggest differences is most churches, when you rehab a place or you build, you have an undue sense of ownership and territorialism around that building. And so you have all these rules that spring up because you want to be good stewards of the building. But in so doing, you block a lot of people from using it. And I said, our partnership with this group, so it's similar. I mean, we didn't know space together at that point, but it was that same end, right, of income and furthering the mission. It allowed us to be open-handed when it came to the use of that building, and much more open than to other uses as it came down the pike, because we'd already crossed that barrier, that obstacle in our thinking.
That's awesome. I talk about this all the time. Obviously, this is my job, and me, I typically don't sleep, and kind of talking about space together all the time to a lot of different people. And two people from the ECC that I use as an example all the time are Andrew Morrell down there in Marion, Indiana.
Yeah.
I am so impressed with that guy, and he's gone through our Space Together training. You guys, if you like this interview and want to hear more of them from people in the ECC, you will definitely hear an interview from Drew. He's become a good friend of mine as well. But man, this guy buys an old, district administration building for $1 because the city says, "Hey, we're not going to do anything with it." And, I'm not sure of the exact years that it's been since that happened. It hasn't been 10. It hasn't been a decade. It's been a relatively short period of time. And now this guy has got food trucks using the kitchen. He's got a school in there. He's got a childcare facility. All of the youth basketball that goes on happens at his place. And they're using their church as an epicenter for impact in a town of like 1,000 people.
Man.
And all the while, this is the most amazing part, he still has church in the same building.
Yeah.
It didn't deter any of what he was doing as a pastor or as his mission in driving the church. It only added to his impact and reach.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Drew is a great leader and a very innovative leader. And one of the ways I would say he's classically covenant positively is partnership. And so it is a part of our movement to partner. Now, we don't necessarily think about partnership in terms of additional income, frankly. We think of partnership in terms of furtherance of the mission. And so, again, this is one of the strengths that Space Together is bringing, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of additional income that comes with that partnership.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, I do genuinely feel like I could have a 2-hour conversation with you and we could just go. Yeah, no one knows this right now, you guys that are listening, but we have gone drastically off script. So I do need to ask a couple more questions just to make sure that we cover some things. And this is one that I'm actually really interested in your response. Our mission is to provide a non-traditional revenue stream through community impact. What about our mission do you feel will be the biggest hesitation for the members of the ECC?
So there actually, there's two things. I think certainly at a local level, there's the concern about being a property manager, right? And so I'm a landlord, and not even the philosophical, but just the practical. And what we notice in the covenant, our pastors are very, very relational. And so they're gifted shepherds and pastors, but sometimes they may or may not have the ability to do some of the practical business kind of stuff that's connected, or they may not feel like they have within their congregation the people to do that, except that it's an unusual congregation that doesn't have some people with a business background, right? I think the other concern at a leadership level, actually, and so we're divided into districts we call conferences. Each conference has a superintendent. There is a lifespan to a local congregation. And so sometimes churches are aware of that, and other times they're coming towards the end and they're not aware of it. And the concern that additional income will keep a church on life support, if you will. And so their mission, in a sense, almost just becomes the building without any sense of actual broader mission, right? It's just simply to make sure the lights are on, the bills are paid, and we don't have to ask the hard questions of ourselves. What's interesting in that is we have not seen any evidence of that to this point. So in other words, the churches that are partnering with you, they partner for the right reasons, which is the furtherance and they can continue the mission that God has given them, right? The breadth and depth of that mission.
And we've had this conversation with several people before, and if your organization is on life support, like, I mean, it really is. We're talking about things are pretty much over. It's not that Space Together can't come in and help you, because we can, but the average time to receive a lead, so not an actual, lease in commercial real estate, but just for a lead right now, can typically be like 18 to 24 months. And that's to have somebody to come in and seriously be interested in renting the space. Right. And this isn't just traditional, B and C class commercial real estate. On Space Together, we're seeing people receive leads within 30 to 45 days, but even in that still takes time. And then you have to develop those relationships, and it does take some time for those things to really build out. If an organization is flat out on life support, like I said, it's not that we can't help you. We can, and we want to have those conversations with you, and we definitely want to learn more and all of those things. But that's really not what we're doing here. We're saying that you have an organization, you still have a mission, you've got some folks that are there, and you have a building that could truly impact the community around you. Yeah. And that's where we come in, and as far as, I would agree with you. And I am a pastor. I'm a church planter. I tell people I are one. I love pastors, and I am one. And, I did this, guys. So to be completely honest with you, Paul can verify every last bit of this. The way Space Together got started was one of my mentors was a church planter and a Marine. And he came to me one day and he said that I had 3 months to get out of his building. And we're in, Colorado Springs, which has the highest, commercial real estate prices in the nation. And I knew that I did not want my own building. So from the very beginning there, we started out in this process of being a pastor that needed space, right? And then once we went through the whole thing of not finding the platform, and now we've got our own building, and we've gone through this whole crazy leases and remodeling and all the other stuff that had to happen while we were running the organization. When we got into the building, we still had no way of renting the excess space that we had. So we used our cell phones and Craigslist in order to get those first tenants in. And guys, I'm telling you, I was doing a church plant. I was managing 15 tenants, and we were getting Space Together off the ground. And that was without all the software that Space Together really provides. With Space Together, we are going to make it a lot more simple to manage your tenants. I mean, as far as like any of the verification processes, all of the tour scheduling is automated. All of the agreements are automated. All the payments are automated. Like, it does make sense to get to know the people in your organization that are renting space from you, both from an impact perspective and just because you're a pastor, you're a person that represents the kingdom. It's good to go and let people know that you're a person and a resource for that. But Space Together's platform will solve a lot of the property management issues that you have. I'm not saying that it's not going to take any work, but it does solve a lot of those things. It does solve a lot of those problems. And on top of that, the first thing that we're going to be asking you guys to do is to go through our training process, where we're literally going to tell you everything that we know. I mean, at that point in time, you could decide we don't want to use Space Together's platform. We're going to take a swing at this on our own, and you will be fully equipped to do that. But Space Together just makes it a lot easier. So
yeah, that's
absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask a couple more questions. In a perfect world, what does the partnership with Space Together do for the ECC as an organization?
I think it allows us to help resource our local church. So again, the mission priority I serve, planting churches and church missional vitality, church health and renewal. This is another tool that we can make available to them to contribute to the flourishing of their congregation. The ability to live into their mission, right? To have the resources they need to fully fulfill that mission.
Yeah, absolutely. This just becomes a tool in the back pocket just for further impact and just for whatever it needs. That's awesome. I love that. That's my perfect world as well. That's great. That's awesome. What are your thoughts on the future of church financing? And I know you've read some of the books, so I'm really interested to hear your take on this. But what are your thoughts on the future of church financing? Do you feel that we will continue to be funded primarily through tithes and offerings, or are there certainly going to be more standard, non-traditional revenue streams in the coming 10, 20 years?
Yeah, we definitely have to be adding non-traditional revenue streams. And to think of, I mean, I realize some people are offended by that language. It doesn't sound like ministry language, but the resources are there. The Lord is providing resources in non-traditional ways, might be another way of putting it. And what's interesting in this is if we look at the Canadian church and the European church, who are ahead of us in this, they have a smaller ministry footprint, actually. Their congregations are smaller. There's fewer people on staff, and they're doing less. And it's not to say they aren't doing it well. It's just that they have less disposable income. And that's the world that we're increasingly living into, all apart from, like you said, sometimes we're going to be moving into spaces or planting churches in an area that has a lower income level to start with, right? The socioeconomic dynamic is there. So it's not just the established, it's thinking ahead and saying, what are the resources that the Lord is providing to allow us to plant this church or to grow this church or to reach this particular people group?
Well, I got to say, I have conversations with people all the time. And at this point, we've met a lot of denominational leaders. We've talked to a lot of different denominations, a lot of networks. The one thing that I will say about the ECC I was a ECC church planter, pastor. I've done inside and outside, and have just gone to all of your events, know a lot of the folks. And one thing that I will say about you guys that I value so tremendously much is how relational that you really are, and that you guys do genuinely care about the people that you work with. And so I didn't want to get off this call without saying that, for one, you are one of my favorite people in the world to work with. I love having conversations with you. I love your take on different topics. It has been so much fun to have those conversations with you. I do find you to be incredibly progressive in your thinking and in just the way that your mind works. You're also very strategic, which I truly do love about you. And so I didn't want to get off this call without saying that. So I wanted to say that before my one final question.
Thanks. And I always enjoy our conversations because I always leave my mind is absolutely spinning because you always introduce me to new things or new books or new topics or did you know this is happening? There's a good chance I didn't. And so the part of the way I can be innovative is because you're one of my friends, actually. So
I don't know. I feel like everybody that I ever speak to from the ECC wants to work for you, and so that's pretty high praise, my friend. That's pretty high praise. So the last question, and then we can kind of wrap some of this up, is I would like to know, what do you want the members of the ECC to know about the partnership with Space Together?
As I mentioned earlier, it is really in our DNA to partner. And so it's a rare covenant church, whatever the community they're in, that they're not partnering with either other churches or community organizations. And so I think, again, when we talk about Space Together being this platform that bridges a gap, if you will, and use some of the business language of income generation and that, I would not want my covenant brothers and sisters or sisters and brothers to not miss the fact that you are a ministry partner. Space Together is a ministry partner. That 100%. Has been the conversation right from the beginning, and that's how we think of it. And so
absolutely.
I, in turn, then am excited to turn around and introduce this particular ministry partner to the churches of our movement to help them and fulfill their mission.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul. Man, I've so enjoyed spending a little bit of time with you, as I always do. I'm excited for my next time to be in Colorado Springs, where we can sit down and have another cup of coffee. and hang out. And I also want to take the second. Paul got to meet her just last week, but a lot of you that are listening to this, and really everybody in the covenant, is going to meet this young lady soon. But her name is Lon, and she is our director of enterprise partnerships. And I'm telling you guys, we stole this lady. She is an absolute steal of an employee. She's going to be working with all of you guys to further this partnership and get a lot of you guys onboarded. So I just want to say thank you guys so much again for tuning in with us. Paul, again, thank you for being here with us. I'll leave you guys with kind of a absolutely, and I'll leave you guys with just a small call to action. For one, we do have a training that we're actively selling to you guys right now. It's $500. This training is normally much more expensive than this. And we're going to go through a gambit of things. 67% of denominational churches, when they rent out their buildings, they end in default. We know why, and it's an infrastructure issue. And so we go through and we teach you every single possible thing that we can about sharing space, how to be safe, how to manage tenants, how to market your space, how to properly take an analysis of the inventory that you actually have. And we go through this huge list. You guys will be getting a lot of information about that. I encourage you guys to sign up for that training. That's really the first step in getting your spaces activated in your community. So again, I want to say thank you so much. And you'll be getting an email from Lon with more information about the training, as well as more of these interviews from people inside the covenant that you guys know that are also partners and have helped this process begin to roll out. So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we look forward to speaking with you really soon. Thanks.
Thanks for watching this episode of Space Together. I'm sure you found it really informative, engaging, and rewarding. So join us at spacetogether.com today and begin generating revenue by impacting the community around you.